Hello everyone. Following on from my last video which I posted on YouTube a few days ago, I mentioned doing a video of building up a Sprat Winkle 3mm auto coupling. Now I explained on the video that I was changing over from tension lock couplings to Sprat Winkle couplings because I had been having trouble adapting the tension lock couplings to use the Brian Kirby method of uncoupling. As you'll be aware, the Brian Kirby method involves gluing a staple to the bottom of the shank of a tension lock coupling, and the staple's attracted to the magnet which lifts the hook. Now I did quite a few of my wagons, and for a time the system seemed to work, and then I had problems with some of the staples dropping off. I couldn't get them to seem to get them to stay on the shanks very well. I tried a few different adhesives and none of them seemed to hold the staples in place for any length of time. And plus, when the staples were on the couplings, they didn't seem to attract to the magnets very well, which obviously caused problems with the uncoupling as well. So I was following a conversation with Dave Scott on RM Web, who I mentioned in the last video. He suggested having a look at the Sprat Winkle couplings which he was using on his club layout. So I had a look at those and I thought, yeah, I'll give those a go. They couldn't be any worse than what I was using, and I think the tension lock couplings are far more the Sprat Winkle couplings are far more reliable than the tension locks, and I think they look better as well. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll build a coupling up, just to let anybody who's maybe thinking about changing over to these see what's involved in the building of these couplings. Now I have to say that normally when I build these couplings up, just at the desk without the camcorder on or anything, I can do a coupling in about 10 to 15 minutes. But obviously it's going to take a little bit longer this time with being filmed, because there's a few things that I need to explain to you along the way, which is going to add time onto the video length time anyway. So you'll just have to bear with me with that. But what I've done anyway, I've started by removing a couple of the components for the couplings from the frets. You only get 2 frets. There's a fret with the mounting plates on, which you can see here. There's one of the mounting plates there. That's listed as MP4 if anybody's interested in the part numbers. And then there's the actual coupling hook itself, which starts out as just a flat piece of brass, which needs bending into shape, and it needs a weight soldering on the back there as well to bring the hook back up to the coupling position, when the wagon's been uncoupled and the 3-link chain moves away from the magnet. So what we need to do first of all anyway is there's a coupling loop that we need to attach to the mounting plate, so we need to get that done first, and I'll show you the wire that I'm using for that. The wire that's being used is this stuff here, which is 0.45mm diameter handrail wire. This is bought from Wizard Models, as was the mounting plates and the Sprat Winkle auto coupling hooks as well. Everything's bought from the one shop, as I say, including the little links to form the 3-link chains. Just before we start, I just want to run through some of the tools that I use in the build-up of these couplings. First of all, I've got a pair of either side or diagonal or snip type pliers, a pair of needle nose or long nose pliers, a fiberglass pen, which I absolutely hate using, but it's handy for cleaning up brass, a pair of normal pliers, a modelling knife to cut parts from the fret, which we won't need this time because the part is already cut, a small file to remove any pips from the parts that's cut from the fret, but again, we'll not need the file because that's already done, a brush to apply some flux because we need to do some soldering, small screwdriver to bend the wire in places, and a small piece of coffee stirrer or similar size piece of wood. And finally, a Bill Bedford handrail bending jig. Now if you're planning on using these Sprat Winkle auto couplings, it's worth getting one of these if you've got quite a few to do, because it takes all the guesswork out of working out what size wire you need and how far the distance between the legs of the wire need to be and everything. I don't know if you can pick up here, I've got a couple of arrows marked on mine, and these is the two sides of the bending jig that I use for the Sprat Winkle, the wires that need to be bent to shape for the Sprat Winkle couplings. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'll move everything back out the way first, and then we can make a start with the coupling. Right, as I say, we've got the mounting plate here. Now, it's important when you remove it from the fret to make sure that any little pips that's on the sides or on the ends or anything like that is fully removed with the file, because we're going to use a homemade jig to hold this mounting plate while the coupling wire gets soldered onto it. This is the jig here. It's simply some pieces of coffee stirrer wood, which has been cut to size and track pinned onto the wood. The wood itself is Studwork CLS timber. It's what I use for the legs on my layout throughout. What you normally find happens is, the parts of the coffee stirrer here, through time, they start and get burnt with you soldering onto the mounting plate which sits in here. And what you have to do is you have to cut some new pieces and sort of move down a bit, because you've already got the holes in the Studwork timber off the track pin. So you need to gradually keep moving your new jig further and further down, and then you can just flip it over onto the other side and start on the other side as well. But you'll get a good few couplings made out of one jig before you have to make another one. Right, so what we'll do is we'll put the mounting plate in the jig, ready to solder the coupling loop on. Now what you have to do is, the 4 holes that you can see in the mounting plate there, you have to have facing forward. And I don't know if you can, I'll just get something to point with. These little notches here, there's a little notch there and one at the bottom, and the same on the other side. They must be facing up, they've got to be top side up, otherwise the mounting plate's in the wrong way and you'll get everything wrong. So we'll put the mounting plate into the jig, like that. Just make sure it's down nice and flat, which it is. And what we need to do now is we need to bend the wire to make the coupling loop. So what we'll need is we'll need the long nose pliers rather, and just form a 90-degree bend in, which is about that sort of size, which I don't know what, maybe it's a little bit longer than a centimetre, possibly, I don't know. So we need to, as I say, once you've got that done, we need to get the handrail bending jig, and we're using the longer of the 2 grooves that's marked out on the jig. Line the wire up with the jig and just simply push it down like that, and then take it back out. Sometimes you have to bend them a little bit more into shape, but you can see there, that's not too bad. We can probably get away with that one. So what we need to do now is we need to cut off this excess long bit so that it's the same length as the shorter part. So we'll bring in the cutters and we'll just snip that, and we'll just put the wire to one side, and now you can see we're left there with the this is the coupling loop that we're going to solder to the mounting plate. It's worth just checking it while you've got it in your hand as to whether it needs a little bit more bending. This one does a little tiny bit just on this side. That should do it. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. That should be fine there, I think. Yeah. Right, so what we'll do now is we'll lie the coupling loop into the jig like that, and it just sits between these 2 pieces of coffee stirrer there. There's a groove in the middle. It just lies into there like that, and what you simply do is you just bend it back over so that now it's lying, the 2 legs of the coupling loop is lying on the mounting plate. Sometimes what happens is, as you can see with this one, the leg sort of comes out a little bit. It's hard to get that back in because it's quite springy there, even though the metal's dead easy to bend by hand. Once it's sitting on the coupling loop, on the mounting plate, it's hard to bend it in without distorting it more. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and solder this side first. This side's pretty much spot on. So we'll get some flux on the brush, get some flux on there, bring in the soldering iron, and just hold that on there, let that heat up nicely. There you go, there's the first one on, there's the first piece soldered on there, the first leg soldered. So what I'll do is I'll have to use the screwdriver and sort of bend this one in a little bit while I solder the other one, but I'll let you have a look at it once I get it done. You don't actually have to do that if you don't want to, because when you think about it, it's only the front part of the loop that you're using where your the coupling hook from the next wagon couples onto, so it doesn't really matter what that's like, but I prefer just to solder that in straight, and then I know it's done. So we'll just get a little bit more flux, soldering iron, and then I'll just push that in. I'm sorry my hand's in the way, but I just need to get that in there. So there we go, that's it soldered on there. And as you can see, my soldering's not very neat, but you know, that's absolutely fine there the way it is. The you know, the wire won't break off or anything like that. So if your soldering's anything like mine, or even worse than mine, although it's highly unlikely your soldering could be any worse than that, it'll be absolutely fine. So what I'll do is I'll just get the modelling knife and I'll just take this out of the jig. We can put the jig away now, we don't need this anymore, not until we come to build up the next coupling. The jig's only used for fitting these coupling loops to the mounting plate. Now while you've got the mounting plate out, it's worth checking just to make sure that the coupling loop is in nice and straight and that, because sometimes it gets deformed a little bit, but that looks absolutely fine there. You can see the solder where it's soldered onto the jig there, onto the mounting plate. I'll get it right in a minute, onto the mounting plate. Right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to prepare the coupling hook. Now as I showed you before, you can see there it's just a flat piece of brass, so obviously we need to put a bend in that, and we need to put a little bit of solder across the back there, just a bead of solder to act as a weight to bring the coupling hook back up to the coupling position once it's been uncoupled from another wagon and the chain's moved away from the magnet. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and we'll bend this first into shape, so you can see how that's done. And what I've done is I've got the square part of the coupling hook right on the edge of it there, not actually touching this shank part. It's on the very edge of the square bit with the needle nose pliers. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this through 90 degrees with the other pliers and put a bend in it like that. I'll lift that up the camera and let you have a look at it, and you can see there that's the hook formed there now. As I say, it's just a simple 90-degree bend from the flat position counterclockwise, and that forms the hook there. Sometimes you have to straighten the hook up when you've bent it. You know, it can be a little bit out of shape, but that's pretty much okay for what we need. We can get away with that. The other bend that we'll have to put in, we've got one more bend to do, and we'll have to put a bend on it so that the hook is sort of bending down a little bit. So what we'll do there is clamp it again in the same position and just get a hold of the hook and just bend it down carefully like that. So I'm trying to hold it with a plier so you can see that's what you end up with, a hook on that sort of angle there. That's absolutely fine there. Okay, it doesn't, the actual, I think it recommends to bend it at 10 degrees or something like that. I always bend it a little bit more. It's not, the measurement's not critical, but if you can, try and keep them all the same on your couplings if possible. Right, we need to solder to the back of the coupling now, to the back of the coupling hook. We need to put that little bead of solder across there to act as a weight, so we'll go ahead and do that now. We'll bring in the fiberglass pen again and just clean the back of that up. which you can see there, that's nicely clean there. You can see the shiny bit at the back. And what we're going to have to do this time is we're going to have to bring in one of those helping hands, because I won't be able to keep a hold of this and solder it at the same time. So there it is there. Again, we'll put some flux on. Not right across the back, just a thin strip across there. That's all we need. We don't need any more than that. Put the soldering iron. And we'll just add the solder to the back there, like that. Now this takes a couple of attempts for to get this right, because I'll just clean the tip of the soldering iron. When the solder's soft, it's hard to build it up. You have to get a bit on for to act as the weight. That should do it. Normally takes about 3 or 4 goes for to get that right. And we'll just lift that off there and I'll let you have a look at that. So you can see there, if I hold that up to the camera, hopefully you can see that okay. And you can see the solder on there. And that's what brings the hook back up to the coupling loop once the wagon's been uncoupled. Right, so what we need to do now is we need to attach this. We need to attach the, which I'm just trying to hold it in my hand just to let you see, we need to attach the coupling hook to the mounting plate, and that's done with like a little pivoting hinge type thing which we need to make from the wire. So I'll move that out the way. We'll move the solder out, the flux out the way. Need to get the wire again. Need to put another 90-degree bend in, but this time it's a lot smaller than the other one. Which you can see there, just needs a little bit more bending. It's a little bit out of shape there, so I'll just bend that again with the pliers. Yeah, that should do it. Get the bending jig again. This time we're using the shorter side of the jig, the opposite side to what we used before. If I can get it in, that's it. That's it in the jig there. You can see the wire sticking out the bottom there. So again, just try and get it lined up straight as we can, and just push the wire over, take it out, and there's the second one formed there. Now you can see there that that's out of shape there, so we're going to have to do something about that to put that right. So what we'll do first is we'll get the diagonal cutters, and we'll cut it to length first, and then we can get rid of the wire. And you can see there that the staple is out of shape, so we're going to have to do something about that. Again, as I say, it's just easily bent by hand. There we go. That's just about perfect. We can get away with that. Right, what we need to do now is we need to we need to solder this little piece that we've done. We need to solder this to the mounting plate as well. So we'll bring in the helping hands again. Now when you come to solder the last little staple part to the mounting plate, it needs to go in from the other side. You can see the solder on the bottom of there. What you have to do is you have to flip that over, and the staple gets, the other little piece gets soldered in from the top. You must remember that, because if you get that wrong, the soldering may interfere with fitting on the bottom of the wagon, which is what you want to try and avoid. So it needs to go in from the top. So what I'll do is I'll just clean that off again. And all I'm doing is just rubbing the fiberglass pen straight over the 4 holes. It's the 2 inner holes that we're going to use for the little staple to go in. The outer holes, the 2 outer holes, is if you're using the 4mm couplings, because obviously bigger couplings in the holes is further apart. So we'll get the helping hands in again. Actually what we'll do is, I keep forgetting this as well, it's easier to fit this into the mounting plate before you stick it on the helping hands. So there it is there, that's it on. I don't know if you can pick that up there, but that's it on there. So we'll once again, and this is the last bit of soldering we'll have to do, we'll get some flux on it. And there we are, and I think we'll put the top on the flux this time. Soldering iron, solder, and we'll let that warm up. There we go. Now what you may find happens when you solder the little staple in, you can see the prongs out the bottom there, but if you have a look, you can see that they've gone forward. Sometimes they go back over and sometimes they go forward. What you'll have to do there is just get a hold of it with the pliers and just straighten them up again by hand, which is what I shall do now. There we are, that should be absolutely fine there. You can see they're a bit straighter there now. So what you do is you take your coupling hook and you simply put there you go. You can see that the coupling hook is on there. Obviously now we need to bend those over so that the coupling hook, because if you put that on the wagon as it is, the coupling hook would just drop straight off the bottom of those, so we need to bend those. And that's what the little piece of coffee stirrer is for that I showed you earlier on. Put the coffee stirrer in between the two pieces of metal, in between the two prongs, pull it across to one side so it's up against one of the prongs. Push the prong forward and bend it over the coffee stirrer, slide it across so it's against the other one, and just pull that one over like that, and then remove the piece of coffee stirrer. Now what you'll find is you'll find that the coupling hook, you can see there, I'll get a hold of it with the pliers. There's the coupling hook there, and you can see that when you push it down, if you imagine the chains is attracting it, it pulls the hook down, and then as soon as you let go, the hook comes back up again. Sometimes you need to work with the weight, sometimes you need a little bit more weight on the back. This one might benefit a little bit from the weight on the back, so what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit more solder on there just to let you see that. There we are. So if I just hold that in there, you can see that's coming back up better there. Yeah, that's much better. So that's it uncoupled, and that's it, springs back up to the coupling position there. So what I'll do is I'll take the camcorder off the tripod and go across to where the wagons are, and I'll show you the couplings uncoupling. Unfortunately I can't show you with the logo because I haven't yet bent up the coupling rods, the coupling bars on the logos yet. I need to get them set to the right height, which I'll have to get around to doing at some point. But yeah, that's pretty much the coupling. That's it made there. That's all there is to it really. I think they're better than tension lock couplings. I think they're far more reliable. The only other thing that you have to do that I should have told you about is you can see there's a very small hole there on the side there. That's where your 3 links chain goes in. That's attracted to the magnet. I haven't showed doing that because it's pretty much straightforward to do. It's a little bit fiddly, it's a little bit time consuming, but it's just a case of opening each link and hooking each link on and then closing the links up, leaving one of the links open for to fit onto here, and then fixing them to your wagons. Now when you come to fix them to the wagons, you probably find that you've got you know, a little bit of work to do on the bottoms of the wagons to get the coupling to fit. I know on the hopper wagons that I'm using, you have to, a Dremel's about the best tool to use for to cut a little bit of a groove, because it's this part of the mounting plate that fits to the underside of the wagon. Now, because you've got this little staple bit thing in there, you need to sort of make a groove in the plastic of the wagon for that staple to sit in, otherwise it doesn't sit flat, and you really need it to sit flat for the couplings to work reliably. Now the brake vans is, you've got to remove a fair bit of plastic, or at least I've had to anyway, for to get these to sit in as well, simply because of the staple, but because of the chassis on the brake van being different to the hopper wagons, there's a little bit more work to do. The other thing that I need to mention to you as well is, if like me you're only fitting one hook to each end of the wagon, obviously you have to have your wagons all facing the same way, otherwise you'll end up with all kinds of problems. But what you do is, for the other end, you've got the coupling hook on one end, and you need one of these on the other end, which couples onto the other one. And this one is simply just the coupling, it's the mounting plate with the coupling loop on, as you can see on this one compared to the other one. There's no actual coupling hook on it at all. It's just the mounting plate and the coupling loop. Again, this fits on the same way. You want the smooth part, obviously not the soldered part, the smooth part fitted onto the bottom of your wagon, onto your sole bar, and the brake vans as well. Whatever you're fitting them onto, it has to be the smooth part that goes onto that. What I do is, with mine, on the brake vans, I'm fitting a coupling hook to each end, because you never know which way the brake van's going to need to be coupled up to anything. But the wagons has all just got one hook on one end, and just the coupling loop on the other without the hook. That's the way I'm doing mine, which I think is the way most people do them as well. But anyway, that's the coupling hook built up. So what I'll do is I'll take the camera off the tripod, and I'll move across to where the wagons are and let you see the hooks working. Right, just before I show you the couplings, coupling and uncoupling and what have you, there's just something I wanted to draw your attention to. I don't know if you can just make out under there where I'm pointing with the modelling knife. You can see that that's the part there with the soldered bit on that we did earlier. Now that acts as the weight for to bring the coupling hook back up to the coupling position when the wagon's been uncoupled, and as I say, the chains is moved away from the magnet. Now by the time you get that painted, I mean, I would imagine that anybody would paint that black. I know I'm going to with mine. I'm going to paint that part and the coupling hook matte black. I think it'll be virtually unseen, and you can just see over the top there where the blade is, you can see the silver coupling wire as well. By the time that's all painted black and that, you'll barely notice that, and I think, to be honest, it'll be a lot less obtrusive than the tension lock couplings. Right, to show you the coupling working, I just need to move the camcorder just slightly like that. As I said, unfortunately I can't use a logo because I still haven't bent the coupling bars up on any of the logos on the Class 8 or my Class 37s. I need to get that done. It's just I've been busy with other stuff as well. Right, so you've got to imagine you've got a logo attached and you want to uncouple the wagons. If you're pulling, it's exactly the same whether you're pulling or propelling the wagons really. You just, if you watch, you'll see that the chain will get attracted to the magnet, which is there. All you do is just back up a tiny bit, and then the coupling drops, and then you would just pull away. If you wanted to couple up again, what you have to do is you have to move the wagon away from the coupling hook. And what you can also do with these is, because they've got the delay feature in, you could actually propel the wagons and then just drive away. And if you wanted to propel them without them coupling up, as you see, that didn't happen there. So if you want to couple up, obviously you just come up just in the same way. You can see the hook dropped slightly as it went under the coupling bar, and then you can just, you can just pull away or whatever you want to do. If you're propelling and you want to uncouple, you just wait until the chain's attracted, and then just pull away again like that, you know, exactly like what I did before, and then you can propel again if you wanted to, and then just drive away, or you can couple it up. You know, it just depends which way you want to do it, really. It's entirely up to yourself. What you need to do is, obviously you need to know where your magnets are. Now on mine you can't see it from here, but the ballast, where the magnet is a slightly different colour. It's just plain grey, and it hasn't got any other colours attached, like mixed in with it rather. So you know where, I know exactly where the magnets are. The magnets that I've used are those neodymium or dymium. I think they were 8mm disc magnets, which I got from eBay. I think I got 10 or 20 for just a few quid or something, and free postage as well. And just put them in the tracker, removed the sleeper, and drilled the hole, put the magnet in the hole, put the sleeper back, and then just reballasted. And as I said, on each side of the sleeper, it's just plain ballast. It's not mixed with any other colour, so I know exactly where the magnets are. I mean, also as well, if you're using these, you could just watch for the chain. If I move it again, you just watch for the chain being attracted to the magnet there, and then you just, you know, you can just back off slightly and then just drive away again. You know where the chain is. You can propel, as I said, if you want to, and then drive away if you wanted to, or if you want to couple up, you can couple up, drive forward, wait till the chain's attracted, pull back slightly, and then just, you know, it's like everything else. It takes a little bit of practice to get it right, but to me, it's from what I've, you know, seen of them up to now, I think it's far more reliable and less obtrusive than the tension lock couplings. I just couldn't get away with the Brian Kirby method at the finish. There was staples dropping off all over the place, and you know, I just couldn't be doing with that. So I was pleased to get, you know, to get sorted out with some other couplings which seemed to be a lot more reliable. One thing that I need to mention just before I go, and I'll quickly take the camera off the tripod and come back to you. On the last video, if you remember, I mentioned that little bike shed that I got the idea from one of the other YouTubers, and I was trying to think of his name, and I couldn't remember his name at the time, and I felt really bad because I couldn't remember his name. But I was having a bit chat with him about these on YouTube and that, and just to give him a bit of a shout out, his name is RobWebb695. He's got a really good depot type layout. If you want to head across to his channel and have a look at his, he's done a really cracking job of his. So so thanks again, Rob, yeah, for the idea of the bike shed. If you hadn't had it on your channel, I would never have known about these being available in model form. So thank you very much for that. So anyway, that's all for now, so I'll speak to you later. Cheers, bye.